Welcome to Wisdom School TV, Karen Alexander.
Hello there.
Hello there. I cannot tell you how delighted I am that we are having this interview. You have definitely been one of my heroines for many, many years and all the work you've done on the crop circle. So I am delighted. And I showed your book earlier, so everyone is aware of your book. And I don't think I have the latest edition. So when I'm over there in England, I must get the latest edition. So let's start off really, really simple because, quite honestly, Karen, when I talk about crop circles, probably 2 out of 3 people's eyes glaze over. They have no idea what these are. So could I just ask you a really simple question to begin? What is a crop circle?
Okay. Well, actually, it's a really good question because, as you say, people don't always know what they are, and sometimes people make assumptions about them as well that are not entirely true. Crop circles are usually circles or geometric shapes that appear usually overnight in a crop field. And in many different crops. In the UK, we grow a lot of wheat and barley, so lots of the formations are in wheat and barley. But in the US, a lot of them obviously in wheat because you grow a lot of wheat in the US, but also soya. And circles are not just a UK thing. I think sometimes people think that they are, but actually they've been reported now, I think, in 61 different countries worldwide. So it doesn't, although south of England is very famous for the circles, they actually do appear all over the globe. The crop is not cut. People sometimes think that somehow the crop is cut in the field, but it isn't. It's usually laid flat. Mostly it's swirled, either clockwise or counterclockwise. But sometimes it can be laid in quite elaborate patterns, sometimes weaved or other kinds of patterns in the crop, which are truly amazing when you see them, especially from the air, but also on the ground. So the crop is not damaged in any way. And if they happen in the early part of the season when the crops are still growing, as long as people don't go in and trample them down too much, the plants will actually recover through photosynthesis, and they grow back up towards the light, and eventually you would barely even know they were there.
Yes, when I was walking in them, I saw that happen where the crops were actually standing up straight again in some of the areas. And one of the things that people always say to me when I start describing the way that the grain is laid down in a circle, they look at me and they go, "You mean it's swirled and woven? How do they do that?" And I said, okay, now, well, yeah, I have no idea. It is astounding, isn't it?
It is. Yep.
Um, you have been studying crop circles for how long, Karen?
Um, I think 2012 was my 20th year,
Wow.
so long time.
So this is what would you call it? Would you call it a fascination? Would you call it an obsession? Or would you call it a hobby? What would you call it?
I think a way of life, actually. I think moving from one season to the next, one summer to the next, and everything that that entails. It's a complete way of life, I think.
Yeah, yeah. I'm just going to say that the Skype is breaking up just a bit, and I don't want to lose any of your words. So if it continues, I might have you just stop the video and let's just do audio. Is that okay with you?
Okay,
Yeah,
it's fine. Yeah.
yeah. Now that people have seen you, I think that'll probably be okay. Why do you think you have studied them for so long? What is your particular fascination with crop circles?
I mean, it's changed over the years. I mean, I think when I first got involved in the circles, I was amazed by them. I mean, just amazed. I mean, one of the things that doesn't always come across very well is the size of them. I mean, they are simply huge. I think the average diameter of of a circle is about 200 feet. And I mean, I was fascinated because they looked as though on the one hand they shouldn't be there, but on the other hand they were, and so I was fascinated by that. I think as time has gone on, I think what fascinates me most now is just the ability that these things have to change people's lives, and I'm interested in that process. How does that happen? And and in looking at that, looking for some kind of rationale to why the circles are here, and what is that process from, what is it that grabs people about them, and then what is it that what is it, where is it that they're going. So it's, as I say, it's kind of multi-level as well. So I think in the early days I looked a lot at the physical nature of the circles. I got involved in plant sampling for scientific analysis. I've also been very interested in consciousness aspects of the crop circle phenomenon, and I think also their mathematics, their geometry, how that links to consciousness, how that whole process works. What is it that changes people? So that's my main focus now, is looking at what is it about the circles that has this ability to change people on a very profound level.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. Let's talk about that, because I named this show "How Big Is Your Reality?" It is my experience. I'm still kind of at the awe and wonder stage because I'm only walked in them once in during 2010. Well, several times during 2010, and I'm going back in June. So let's talk about changing consciousness. Tell me what you have discovered, either personally or just from, being around crop circles and working in this field with other people.
I think the first thing that I started to look at was this initial ability to grab people, um, and there was something about the act of seeing the circles that really just took hold of people and wouldn't let go. And I obviously then looked at my own experience and looked at the way that this had really grabbed me, and why was that? What was that about? And I think some of that is to do with the fact that what the circles are able to do, and I don't just think it is the circles. I think there are many things that can do this, but it kind of does begin to open up people's minds, and they begin to think about, is this all that there is to reality? And what the circles and the paranormal and other spiritual experiences convey to people is that actually it is a bigger reality, that there are things about this world and about our experience of it that doesn't fit into our usual scientific worldview. And once the door is open, once you've seen whatever it is, whether it's a crop circle, whether you've seen a UFO, or you've had a mystical experience, whatever that is, once you've seen that, it's not possible to unsee it. and so it begins that process of change in you. And once the door is open, it's not a narrow door, it's a wide door. And so there are many, many different things that, then you come into contact with. And, one of the things that always fascinates me about the crop circles is their geometry and shape, because essentially that's what they are. That's the language that they use. It's the language that they appear in. So what is it about shape and number that's so fundamental to what's going on in the fields, and what can that teach us or tell us about what is going on? And it's pretty fundamental. Number and geometry is a language in itself. And numbers have qualities as well as quantities, and there are proportions and all kinds of things encoded into the circles that have meaning.
Mm-hmm.
as well as function.
Mm-hmm.
And so by looking at the geometry and the number in them, you were able to, in some way, make sense of the world and the crop circle world. But what you then begin to realize is, when you begin to look into this, is, can you hear my cat in the background?
Yeah. Yeah. So maybe they have something to say about crop circles too.
What you begin to realize is that these numbers and proportions that you find in the crop circles are not just applicable to the crop circles, but to the whole of the natural world. So again, we have this sort of there's the next door to be thrown open, and you begin to see that the numbers and proportions and shapes of the crop circles are not just crop circle centric, but they actually are the shapes, numbers, and proportions that underpin the whole of reality as we know it.
Right, right, right.
And so, in a way, they speak that language,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a language that, at one point in human history, was very, very important. Not so important now, but I think becoming more important
Mm-hmm.
now. And it's kind of a language of shape and so on that is beyond language, if you like. It's beyond spoken language, certainly, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, as a civilization, particularly, I think in the West, I think with the invent of modern computers and things, we're moving back towards a pictorial kind of way of thinking about the world. So I think it's fascinating in a way that the crop circles have kind of mirrored that particularly over the last 20 years.
Right, right. So I'm going to, okay, you cleared back up again. You got fuzzy and then you got clear again. We're going to keep going here. So far, so good. Okay, there's probably about 6 questions that came from what I want. So as I told Karen before we started this interview, I'm going to be very selfish about what I ask her because I want, there's certain things that I'm fascinated with in these crop circles. One of them is shifting consciousness. I so much agree with this thing about once the door is open, you can't shut the door again. And what does that open us up more to? Um, and of course, one of the deeper questions that I ask myself, and since I am going to be running a workshop over there that includes the crop circles, is what is really the message? You know, you talk about numbers having a deeper meaning. Absolutely. You talk about it really being the underpinning of our whole reality, let's say physical form reality and non-physical form reality, right? Because these things to me are holographic. They're not just three-dimensional, laid down in grain. So what do you feel like is one of the messages of the crop circles? And you can just talk personally if you like. I have my thoughts, but I'd like to hear yours.
I do think there are many messages, but I think the main message of the circles is about the idea that there is a bigger reality, and that also that there are a realm or realms beyond this one that we are familiar with, that live right next to us all the time, and that of which we are barely aware, and the circles and other subjects that we mentioned are portals into that. They are a doorway
Yes.
into that. And and there is some really interesting stuff going on, particularly in relation, I think, to the number and geometry, because although crop circles are often, we look at pictures of them, photos of them, and we look at maybe at drawings of them, when you get into them on the ground, they are architectural spaces, and that has an those spaces have the ability to affect directly the human mind. And if you like, you think about the numbers and proportions in the crop circles, they are like frozen music,
Hmm.
and so all the kinds of, you know, things that we would, but the numbers and rhythms and so on, and that we would find in music are completely interchangeable with, with some of the geometry of the formations. And when you think about music's ability to affect consciousness directly, it can move us to tears, it can completely inspire us, or the military band makes you want to go and march for your country and go to war. These things have a profound effect on our consciousness, of which we are not consciously aware.
Mm-hmm.
And so, if you like, there is something about them that affects directly the unconscious. And so when we enter them, we are being affected by that, whether we realize it or not.
Do you feel like that they are in any way trying to, let's say, show us the signs so that we can grow more or expand more into the multidimensional reality that we are, and therefore affect the world in a bigger way?
Yes, I do. Yes, I think that's true. I mean, I think, so many people come and visit the circles. I mean, not just in the UK, but around the world. And people take that away with them, and it changes them. And from then on, they then make changes in the world. They become a change themselves. So, this has a real, effect, a wide effect, more of a wide effect than we really realize. And I also think that, that humanity is at a stage where it is on the cusp of some kind of major change in consciousness, and by that I mean a fundamental change of worldview as well. I mean, our current sort of mental, rational view of the world is becoming very dysfunctional now, and in a way, that's a sign that it's no longer fit for purpose, if you like, and out of that, and I think this has happened many times over human history as we've moved into higher and higher states of consciousness as we've evolved. And I think we are at a point now where that is about to happen again. And I think what crop circles do, and these other subjects, is that they are the fly in the ointment, if you like. They're the itch that you have to scratch, and in doing that, and in being opened up to all of this, there is the possibility for profound change, and we really need it at this time.
Yes.
And I think also on another level, you could look at the circles as acupuncture for the planet.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm sure that circles don't just affect human beings, but they also affect the landscape and the planet. I mean, most of them are placed just beautifully on the landscape, and to me it's always seemed as if they were that part of their function was a healing for the earth as well, and a healing or an activation of the landscape as well. So I think there are many things going on in many different dimensions.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yes. I love being validated. I'm listening to you going, check, check, check. I love it. I love it. Do you have a anticipation this is going to air right as the beginning of 2013 Crop Circle season is beginning, the 1st of May. Of course, it's a long season throughout the summer, and recently the really hasn't really gotten started until kind of late July or in July sometime and that kind of thing. But do you have an anticipation of what you're going to start seeing in 2013, or do you just let it show up and whatever it is and then go with it from there? I hope I was clear in that question.
Yeah, you are. I think, I try to go into each season with as clear a palette as I possibly can. I do think it will be a late start to the season this year, just because we've had a very long, cold winter here in the UK, and And in fact, I was in Wiltshire a couple of weeks ago, and the crops are struggling, I mean, I think in 2012, the first UK crop circle was on the 15th of April in canola. But the crops have been really struggling because, as I say, it's been a very long, wet, cold winter over here. So I'm not anticipating a crop circle in the UK probably until at least mid-May. And so maybe, then we'll begin to see the first formations of the season. And hopefully by the time we get into sort of June and July, there'll be a little more for people to see. Because, I mean, obviously crop circles are dependent on the crop growing season. But as I say, I think it's going to be late this year. I mean, usually in a season, there are themes that work their way through several formations over the summer. Last year, we saw a series of amazing dragon-type formations in the Pewsey Vale over here, which were incredible. And also, we saw some of the something completely different. We had a huge cube formation at Hackpen Hill right at the end of the season last year, which was about 400 feet in diameter and made up of 216 small cubes.
Wow.
And it was just incredible. I've never seen anything like it. So cubes have been a theme that have been worked through over the last few seasons, so it wouldn't surprise me to see some more of those in 2013. But I actually think 2013 is going to be a critical year. I know everybody was very much focused on 2012 last year because of the end of the Mayan calendar and all kinds of things like that going on. But 13 is the number of transformation. And so to me, this year feels kind of pregnant with anticipation of what we might see. So I'm really excited actually about the coming summer.
Well, I really love hearing that, Karen, because since 2010, I've wanted to come back over and do crop circle, and it was not until this year that I need to go back. So I'm in there with you. I hope I'm full of anticipation as well. Um, Okay, I have to ask you this question. I know because I have several people that said you must ask her this question.
Okay.
Even though it isn't, let me say it's not that important to me. I have my own theories about this, but I'm sure you get asked this all the time. Who or what do you think creates the crop circles?
Right. Okay. I think it's important to say first that any crop circle researcher worth their salt will honestly say to you that they don't know.
Yeah,
There is so much that we don't really know, and there's so much that we don't yet understand. I am sure that there are a number of circles every year that are made by people. I'm not always sure that that necessarily means that those formations are unimportant. I kind of tend to go with the feeling that whatever happens is important and it's all part of the crop circle narrative. So I'm not as anti that, I think, as some other researchers might be. Everybody kind of has their opinion about that, but I do think there are genuine unknowns surrounding the whole crop circle mystery, and and some of that has to do with how circles get there. How is it possible to flatten a 450-foot crop circle in the small hours of the night? How do you even, I mean, for anybody who's ever stood in one of these things, it is almost impossible at ground level to understand the shape that you're stood in.
right.
And sometimes some of them are so big you can't see from one end to the other. So how is that done? It's utterly mind-boggling. And I
Right.
think, the best experience of that is actually to come and stand in one for yourself, because
Yes.
it really is a humbling experience. Other than that, I'm kind of open to all kinds of things. Maybe there isn't one total origin of this. I mean, maybe it's a culmination, and that crop circles serve many different functions. As I've talked about, you know, the idea, that they are perhaps some kind of acupuncture for the earth. I mean, some of the research into circles have suggested that they like to appear where there is chalk and underground water that
Hmm.
creates some kind of piezoelectrical effect, and this is often picked up by dowsers. Um, I mean, obviously, there are people who are very interested in the extraterrestrial
Hmm.
hypothesis when it comes to the circles. I'm much more open to the consciousness idea. I think that somehow crop circles are inspired from places beyond the realm with which we are most familiar, i.e., our normal everyday reality. I think, you know, the origin of them somehow relates to that other place, and because that's where it seems to me that we're being led, time and time again, no matter which kind of angle we come from. I mean, one of the things that has fascinated me over the years, because I was involved in it in the beginning of my involvement in the subject, is, the scientific work, because, it seems that the science has, while it's been able to provide some interesting results, talking about changes to the crops and soils, it's not been able to do anything that's more definitive than that. And it's almost as if the circles are saying, we're just going to block your every move in that direction because that's not what we want you to look at.
Uh-huh.
That's not where your attention
Huh.
should be. So
Huh.
I'm going to completely frustrate you on that level in the hope that you look at something that's different to that. So, I find that interesting too. So, and there is a very personal experience
Hmm.
to the circus as well, which I think is important to mention. Many people who are involved with the phenomenon feel they have a personal relationship with it,
Hmm.
and that even though the circles may not be around in the winter, that there is something that kind of, you know, uh, gives them a helping hand now and again, with an idea or two, or is it provides some kind of inspiration, So I think that's very interesting and as well, and something that I have personally experienced. I
Hmm.
think, whatever is around the crop circles is not just around when the circles are in the field, but is around all the time. And I think people do have or do build a relationship, with whatever this is.
Hmm. I would agree. Yeah, I just want to say that when I was doing my trip, my one trip, I kept getting the sense that the energy, and I'm the mystic, I'm the one who goes in for the energy and the mystical experience of what these are. So I'll just say that right off. I don't go in with a scientific mind. It was very benevolent, whatever creates these circles. And the
Yeah,
more that I could open to, and the group I was with, open to just being with that benevolence and in that almost beginner's mind place where you talk about in your book, to
yeah,
just be in that innocent awe and wonder of not in the mind of who did this, how did this happen? How could this possibly have happened? I'll look at that, look at this. It's more like in the benevolent beginner's mind of the awe and wonder. The crop circle to me would really begin to communicate and inform and speak on all
yeah.
those different levels that you're talking about. Is that been, kind of an experience you've had?
Yes, definitely. And I mean, during the season, I mean, obviously I get very wrapped up in it, as you can imagine. And my partner and I record the circles photographically from the air and
Yes.
on the ground.
Yes.
And I also spend a lot of time drawing them as well. And I think, your consciousness gets entangled with it in some way, and so, as you say, when you become absorbed, or you absorb that into yourself, you are in a sense opening some kind of channel. And the crop circles do speak, and again, going back to what we were saying, that they are a language beyond the spoken word.
Yes.
And so when you open yourself up to that, very often ideas, inspirations, images, come flooding in, and many people have described that to me over the years. And and they are always, when it's their first one, they're always really amazed by it, and they kind of look at you and they say, "You're not amazed by that." That which makes me feel really jaded, but actually, I think it's wonderful.
Mhm.
I think that there is something, in this world that can inspire people in that way. I think is truly incredible.
I do too. And I have to say that, I've been to the pyramids in Egypt. I've been to a lot of sacred sites. I've seen some amazing things on this planet, but the crop circles they're alive and
Yeah,
they're instantaneous and they're right here. And it's kind of like, wait a minute, we drove by that field yesterday and there was nothing there. And it it brings in a whole different element of wonder in the reality that we are living in and what it is inviting us to step into when it's that immediate.
yes, it is. I mean, there really is an immediacy to it, and when you walk down a tractor line into the field and you cross the threshold into the circle, you are in a sense stepping into another reality.
Yes.
And and again, that's something that lots of people have sort of described over the years, and something I still feel now when I visit them.
Mhm.
That you step into a sacred space.
Yes.
And we were talking earlier about the geometry. I mean, a lot of the geometry and proportions that you find in circles are geometries and proportions that have been used in sacred building for thousands of years. And there's a reason that it's used, and the reason that it's used is because it has that ability to open up and raise the vibration of people who step inside.
Yes. Well, I think on that note, I am going to wrap up this interview only because I want to leave that beautiful taste in everyone's mouth and also anticipation of what's coming forward this summer. Would you like to share your website for your event that you do every year at the end of July? It's coming up in Devices this July. And if people are interested in checking that out, would you like to give that information? Go ahead.
Thank you very much. We run a crop circle conference, and it is this year. It is the 26th to the 28th of July. It's held in Devizes, which is right in the centre of crop circle country in the UK. We take a coach tour out on Friday. There are 2 days of lectures, and we also have some workshops on offer. It's a great gathering. It's not. It's friendly and warm, and people come to share their experiences as well as listen to whoever is speaking. And we have some wonderful speakers this year. It's about the experience of coming and sort of absorbing yourself into the whole crop circle experience. So, and if you want to find out more about that, the website is www.summerlectures.co.uk. And
Yeah.
if I may also, I'd like to mention our other website, which is www.temporarytemples.co.uk. And people can log on to that. We post all the latest pictures on there as we take them throughout the summer. But there's also a wonderful image library that goes right the way back to 1993, 1994, with images from all of those summers that people can go and look at for free.
And I recommend going to temporary temples and taking a look at the images of the crop circles because most people have no idea what these
No,
things have really been. And I also want to add that Karen has graciously agreed to be a part of my workshop that I'm doing in England June 10th through the 15th. And it's actually called Co-Creating a New Reality. So the name of it is perfect for what the crop circles are. And she will be spending an afternoon with us and with her magic and her wonder and her expertise and all of her information. So I'm just delighted and I'm looking so forward to it. Well, thank you so much, Karen, for your time, for your graciousness, for sharing so openly, and I so look forward to meeting you very, very soon.
me too. Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye.